Okay, live. Uh, I decided to just get on and start babbling live. My goodness, we are echoing. Okay, got that fixed. What a great start. Anyway, weather report is something I used to do every day. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And I got burnt out. But anyway, there are some things, ideas, basically, that I would like to start conversations about. And this whole secular spirituality is one of them that keeps coming up. And let's see, the point. What is the point? Like, there's a there are a lot of atheists that come out of religion and then completely reject any of the words like God, spirituality, you know, just totally reject any thinking about what it is that is behind this absolutely ridiculous amount of people that believe in the spirit mind or supernatural things. I mean, there's something that drives people to irrationality. The point, there is something that keeps the irrational spirit mind thinking alive. Now, one of the things that I read about when I read about this 60 years ago, mostly with Ellen Watts, that there were these experiences that human beings have over and over again and get written about in history. And some of them even seem to create cults in religion. And Buddhism talks about it. Zen Buddhism talks about it. They call it Satori, enlightenment, that sort of thing. There's Paul on the road to Damascus with the experience that he had. And there are these tremendously powerful experiences that humans can have that we are just now getting the science necessary to learn about this stuff. Andrew Newberg, if somebody has been studying this for about 20 years, you should check into that. I will try to put that in. And I want to write things down because one of my pet peeves is YouTube videos where they'll mention like the name of a fossil species or something. And you got to try to figure out how to spell that. Anyway, Andrew Newberg has done research on monks and spiritual states of mind. But I don't think Andrew Newberg has ever put anybody in a scanner when they're having one of these experiences. I call them grand mal experiences, but you could call them grand bien or, great good experiences because that's what I had when I was 15 years old. That experience really impressed me. I mean, for 3 days, I was in an altered state of mind, right? And I was an atheist before, during, and after. Some people convert from atheism to religion because they had one of these experiences. Now, then I went on to chase that experience and try to figure out how to get it back. Because it doesn't, it's not persistent. They're kind of temporary things, these spiritual experiences, they call them religious experiences. Then I got into AA in 1974, and Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, has a appendix called Spiritual Experience, and he's talking about what happened to him. With him, it was belladonna that kicked it off. And so something happened to him that sobered him up for the rest of his life, which is really kind of interesting. It happened to him in a hospital when he was really low at a low point. And you'll find that these experiences happen to people who are super stressed out. And everything is falling apart in their life like an alcoholic hitting his bottom. Skid row alcoholic is what Bill Wilson was. And then all of a sudden, this light will just come in, and you'll just completely change your attitude toward everything around you. So something is going on, right? So the idea is try to figure out what the hell is going on in the brain when this happens. Is it good? Is it bad? Whatever. So anyway, later work. Yeah, Bill Wilson. No, let's talk about my biography a little bit. Okay, then I went on a journey of dropping LSD and looking for this experience. And when I did 500-600 micrograms of LSD, I felt something that was very similar to that 3-day experience I had prior to ever having taken a drug in my life. And so there was a similarity, but it wasn't the same. There was something about it that wasn't quite as self-sustaining. I guess it was being sustained by a drug, by a chemical, rather than being sustained by whatever happened in my brain. Throughout my life, I came to understand what happened to me as something similar to an epileptic seizure. In fact, there are people that have epilepsy that have seizures that come out of it and report having this spiritual feeling, this magnanimous feeling that they are one with the universe, which is really interesting. Now that happens in the temporal lobe, and God, I don't think I want to draw a brain. I don't know. I always try to draw brains and I fail. Brains are, well, let's see. First of all, we got to get a pen. So brains kind of look like that a little bit, and they have brain stem, and then they have this lobe that kind of goes to the back, and this is called the temporal lobe right here, and it's on the side of the brain, right above your ears, and it connects this thing, this parietal lobe back here, with frontal lobe and temporal lobe. There's a TPG junction right here. And I think Andrew Newberg and a few other people have found evidence that something goes on in this junction, right? When they stimulate that area or alter that area, what happens is you get this out-of-body sensation, because the TPG and something called the default mode network is what allows you to remember, oh, I am this self named Mike, and I'm sitting here on my chair, and I'm drinking coffee and talking into a microphone, and I up is that way and down is that way, and there's out there. So spatial, how it locates me, or you could call it ego, how it locates me in the universe, and that all happens in this wonderful area, parietal temporal lobe area, and it communicates, of course, with our thinky brain frontal lobe, and this tells us where we are in space. So when they mess with that area, people get the feeling that they're floating outside their body and observing themselves from the outside. Now that happens in spiritual experiences too. So there's a clue there. There's something going on, and this causes you to lose touch with this default mode of, I am Mike and I'm sitting in a chair and I have, obligations and responsibilities and all this stuff. The ego, right? It kind of blows that away. Now, is that a good thing? Well, that's the other thing. Why in the fuck would we do this? Why would we subject ourselves to, this spiritual bullshit, right? Okay. I think I can comment on that a bit later. But okay, the thing is, I realize that when people talk, like I hear people call into Matt Dillahunty, and they'll tell him, I have a personal relationship with God. And Dillahunty won't listen to him. He'll just run over him, not talk to him. But they're talking about this same thing. When they go to church and they feel all the holy flow in and they have the community and all that stuff, it puts them in a mode of operation that is kind of pleasant and peaceful. And they call it a personal relationship with God. So something is altering their state of mind where they are put into a state of mind that feels good and seems to lead to good things, right? They care more about the people around them. They care less about themselves, all of these values that we have. So they keep talking about this relationship with God. And you'll get this like feeling. And then, of course, you'll go to your thinky brain here and you'll start to explain that feeling as God is talking to me, right? Now, that's where it gets dangerous, right? God's not talking to you. You're not really floating out of your body when the TPG junction melts down. That is not what's happening. Something is going on in your brain to alter your normal state of consciousness. Okay. Why would we want to do this? Well, in my life, I've dealt with alcoholism and drug addiction all my life. I'm currently 19 years sober. I have had like probably 4 or 5 really strong hit the bottom as an alcoholic and drug addict experiences in my life. Woke up in psych wards and whatever. And oftentimes I have that remarkable experience that everything kind of melts down and I completely give up my will to, run out and get more drugs. And I enter onto a new course of action in my life that changes my entire life for the better. That happened to me on April 1st in 2007. I was, I don't want to use the S word because I'll get, YouTube. But I was planning on this being my exit. I was going out and I was at the bottom and I was trying to spend $13,000 of cash that I had in my pocket. And when I was done, I was going to be done. And through some weird events, I ended up instead at an AA meeting where I remember thinking, I don't care what these dumb son of a bitches tell me to do. I'm going to do it. And they told me to go to 90 meetings, 90 days, get a sponsor, read the big book, right? And I did that. And I sobered up, and that was 19 years ago. Changed my life. So I entered on this, but then I had to deal with depression. I have a terrible problem with terminal depression, we'll call it the S depression. All of my life. And I learned tricks. I learned how to put myself into a state of mind when I got depressed. And the interesting thing is when I started getting depressed, something was going on in my body and mind. I felt myself being sucked into a black hole. And then I would start a narrative. I would say, oh, I am depressed. It was like I wrote, on a screen, I am depressed. And as soon as I did that, I went further into the hole, right? There's this cycle that you get into. And I think some current research on depression is finding that there is this loop cycle, between your cortex, your thinky brain, I'll call that the thinky brain, and your limbic system, which is, where the emotions and all that come from. That the limbic system will pop up here and then you'll say, oh, I am depressed. You'll write that note and then it goes back here in a loop and it makes you a little more depressed. And then you go out and you write some notes. Oh, I suck and life sucks. And then you'll write another note or it'll go back to your limbic system, make you more depressed. And then it's like, oh, life is meaningless. I am a worthless piece of crap. On and on and on, right? So you end up in this loop and they're finding something about suffering from depression that we kind of make it worse ourselves. We like the worst thing you want when you're depressed is to feel better, or the last thing you want when you're depressed is to feel better. And that's an interesting statement. Why would you not want to feel better? But that's what depression does to you. Anyway, so these depressive modes I found were like I could try to meditate, stop writing the narrative. I'd stop my little loop brain. I'd stop this thinky part that kept looping around. My daughter called it a hamster running around on a hamster wheel. And I learned to stop that by meditation and by letting go and doing what I called as an atheist prayer, which is pretty weird for an atheist, but I would do a bodily movement and it would put me in a different state of mind. And the damn depression oftentimes would, it wouldn't go away, but it would become manageable, like really manageable, to the point where I just, went about and watched Netflix for a while and went to bed and felt better the next morning. It's kind of odd. So I learned to do that over 19 years. I learned about this spiritual mode of thinking. And the other reasons for why an atheist would want to do this, right? Oh, hi, Nerdy and Aaron Tomasa. Hi. I have two people actually listening to me. Reasons for doing it. It put me into a peaceful state of mind where I had less anxiety. I was more likely to pick up the phone and call my kids or call a close friend. I became less likely to cogitate and worry about myself, my own skin, and to step outside of myself. And I felt an overall peace. And it made me more creative. It allowed me to change some of my basic attitudes. I mean, I had some, like any, I came out of being a Republican, and now I'm about as far right as you could possibly go without falling off the damn spectrum. And I think that happened through this process of meditation. It opens up your mind. And okay, so there's more to this. Let's see if I can pop that up. This default mode network is something that they believe operates in our day-to-day life. And that's where we have narratives and beliefs and all of that stuff, right? The thing about it is I call it the thinky brain, right? The rational brain, the forepart of your brain, thinky brain over here. It's actually like interconnected with the core of your brain, and it's called the default mode network. And they have just started researching it in the last 20 some years, and it operates you on a daily basis, but it keeps you kind of locked in to a mode of operation that is you, right? So if you have beliefs that are not particularly rational, they're somewhere tucked away in your brain, you're used to them, they're like the furniture in your room. It just seems like home to you, right? Your brain. Oh God, those damned immigrants, they're stealing my job. They're changing my signs to Spanish from English, right? They're doing all this stuff. Or you get these little ideas, and you never really sit down and rationally take every piece of the idea or the belief and analyze it. You just run with it. And that's the default mode network. Default mode network is absolutely necessary for our day-to-day operation. It's how we live. It's how we survive in the world. There's a goddamn good reason for it. But it can be your enemy if you always spend time in that network, right? So you've got all these beliefs, which are massive networks of brain cells wired together, and they're based on other beliefs. And there's a chain, and there's just this huge network, right? And if you're in this default mode network, you're not going to think every time you act. You're not going to go all the way back and follow this entire chain down to why do I believe that, right? You're just going to react all of a sudden. So you're just going to react on these beliefs. And I call that intuition. So intuition is like a calculator that takes all that massive network in your brain and comes up with an answer. Sometimes the answer is a bear is chasing me and I got to run away, right? I mean, you don't have time to go down and think, oh, why do I believe that? Why am I afraid of bears? Why do I think bears are big furry things with huge muscles that weigh 400 pounds? You don't think about all that. You just immediately, intuitively know that bear is bad shit. He's chasing you. You got to run away. So that becomes your intuition. And intuition is a mixed bag. It's a really good thing because it allows us to very quickly react. It's what I'm doing now. I'm having a dialogue out loud based on intuition. Let me see here. Oh, I got a comment. Anyway, let's see. I've been there with catastrophizing and ruminating over imaginary, perhaps, paranoid scenarios that you cobble together. That's that narrative brain. And so these spiritual states are meant to put you into a mode where you can start to analyze those things, or at least hide from them for the moment and not let them operate on you. Like if you're a road rage person and somebody cuts you off in traffic, you'll instantly react, right? Well, we should never instantly react to anger or anything unless a bear is actually chasing us, unless we really need to. We should, it's like, okay, an event happened. Now it's time to use your rationality to figure out what happened to you, right? When I had that 3-day experience when I was 15 years old that I call a spiritual experience, and my entire world melted down, I did not come up with, decide, oh, God was talking to me, right? I rationally looked at it and figured out what the hell was going on, read about it and all that stuff. And I've been doing that all my life. I don't want this to be too long. I just want to make these things short. Yeah, intuition tells you there's this flat. So, I mean, intuition is a mixed bag. There's those, well, that would be like a childhood intuition. There's all these things you learn and all of this reasoning that you develop, and you change these beliefs, right? As a result of learning things, and your intuition then becomes better. Like, I'm sure that all of us here intuitively think the earth is round right now because we've altered these little belief buttons here, this belief network. So now when we need to think about it, we intuit that the earth is round. Okay, so you've got these beliefs which you have developed because of experience, and you have an intuition that is a result of those beliefs. And then you have this mode of operation where you can reanalyze your beliefs and start to deconstruct them and think, why do I believe that? Why do I think the earth is round? Every 5 years, we really ought to take that up on review. Like, why do I think that? And so that's one of the reasons for this spiritual atheism stuff. Another one is basically I have found great meaning in my life. I found connection. I've been able to calm down. I can deal with really traumatic events in a way that I never have been able to before. And what I'm doing is I'm training my brain in a set of new skills, and I call it spirituality. You can take it or leave it. I mean, if you're happy the way you are, you're fine. You're never concerned about, what you believe. Live your life and just, run on. Don't think about it. I think it's a big deal, and I really like it. So, okay. I want to get to these comments, and I will in a second, Nerdy Rodent. But there's let's see. Okay. Default mode network is what I kind of dug into here. The default mode network started to appear. They have some papers here. Maybe you guys can read this in your spare time. 1997, 2001, a paper came out called Default Mode of Brain Function. And it was written by Marcus, I can't even pronounce that, Rachel. And this is the origin of the default mode concept. And then they've been working on it ever since. Now, the interesting thing, when you take a psychedelic, the serotonin receptors in the default mode network inhibit the network. In the rest of your brain, your whole cortex, all your sensory cortex, frontal lobe, everything, that gets disinhibited in psychedelics, right? So the default mode network shuts down, the part that tells you I am me and I'm sitting in my bag of skin and all that bullshit. and everything else in your brain, including the world around you, lights on fire. And that's what psychedelics do. So it's very interesting that it shuts down that default mode network. So then let's see, what do we got? So here's the history of finding the default mode network and what the DMN actually is. And they talk about which posterior cingulate cortex, precuneus, medial prefrontal cortex, etc. And then I asked for a clear way to learn about it. And ChatGPT is very good at doing that for you. The best current route for learning. You can ask it to give you a current route, and it'll suggest what papers you read. Menon 2023, which would be the most current paper. 20 Years of Default Mode Network, a review and synthesis, which I'm going to pick up and read. Anyway, so what else do I got here? Oh, God, there's so much I could talk about, but I don't want this to go long. And I'm going to try to get on and just babble every morning because, God, if I don't start doing something, this channel's never going to go anywhere. My ideas are just going to die with me. Okay. Do the chat, so I'm going to get out of here, guys. My mom said the body may have something to do with intuition as well. Yes. Yeah, you bodily intuition. Like when you get up and walk across the floor, you're using that same, you're not consciously moving every muscle. You're using this this default mode of walking to walk across the floor. We do that with thinking too. The problem with thinking, every day, or at least every 5 years, you ought to analyze what you believe and ask yourself, why the hell do I believe it? That's where rationality comes in. Rationality is a tool, and it works kind of the same way as these narratives in your mind, but you're not really being rational when you're letting your default mode network and your intuition do all your thinking for you. Sometimes you have to deconstruct it all. So that is my point. And I think that's what spirituality is about. Getting in that state of mind for at least 5 minutes a day and taking a look at things. I'm also there with having trouble trusting people, especially those I don't know particularly well. Yeah. These are all like default modes of operation, you know? Like our kids will do something and we'll just fly off the handle. And sometimes somebody will say something to you, come up and talk to you, and you just fly off the handle or start advising them without actually sitting there and shutting your mind the fuck up and listening to them. So what I'm getting out of this is what we call spirit is another emergency property. Yes, an emergency property of the brain and a skill that you can learn, a skillful mode of operation of your brain where you can have a hell of a lot more peace and rationality in your life. The brain does not come with an owner's manual. That really pissed me off when I was a kid. It's like, what the fuck what is going on in my head? And where's the owner's manual? How do I stop this crazy shit I put up with? Anyway, so that's it, guys. Intro to spiritual or secular spirituality. Whatever. We don't just want the other thing. Back to the point. What was the point? There is something that keeps irrational spirit mind thinking alive. I mean, because we don't understand our own brains, things will happen in our brains. Like all of a sudden, we'll have an out of body experience, right? And we'll say, "Oh my God, God is talking to me," right? I mean, we need to understand what's really going on. What's going on is your temporal parietal junction has melted down momentarily, and you're kind of in a mode of operation where you may not be making the best choices, that sort of thing. So it's understanding what we are and how our brain operates. And if you're a super hard atheist and super hard naturalist like I am, you will understand that you are an organism in the cosmos. You are interconnected with the cosmos. Most of what happens to you has to do with biological goo, not rationality. Being rational is a tool that we humans can employ to help us with survival and feeling good or whatever. Anyway, so this is not against rationality. This is just, every now and then be really rational and start to deconstruct what you think and believe. Anyway, that's enough. So thank all 2 or 3 of you who showed up to listen to me.